there they are right now. It's good to have both of you. And Pete, I do note the change in T-shirt there. Let me just come to you first, Gemma. This is an interesting story here. So the headline that we're seeing, Parliament sex tourist accused of sleaze on official trips overseas. So a lot of people will be wondering, what is this all about? In the Times, page 6. Just tell us a little bit more about what this is about. I'll let you explain here.
Okay, so it is indeed a sleazy little story here. So it's all about all-party parliamentary groups. Now, these are informal parliamentary bodies. They are sort of cross-party. And what happens is peers or MPs who have a cause that they feel really passionate about, they will liaise with other countries and they will go off essentially on all expenses paid trips on their own, on work time, to go and promote these issues or indeed to sort things out. And they do obviously have working itineraries while they're there, but apparently they're also using and abusing these trips to indulge in some rather boorish, old-fashioned, gross behaviour, quite frankly. Like, it isn't on to be representing your country than to be asking, where's the nearest brothel, which has been reported. So Chris Bryant, who heads up parliamentary select committees, he is saying, look, these are serious grievances and they should be reported and we should be looking into them. And obviously this isn't acceptable, but also really, really uncomfortable for any women who are involved on these trips. And there's sort of talk about very entitled behaviour, very arrogant, perhaps not speaking to people in the correct way as well, and just not conducting themselves in a proper way and not being discreet about this behaviour at all. So not very pleasant and very, very awful in the times that we're living in as well, to be abusing these expenses and going off on these jollies and then behaving like that.
And of course, within this article, no individual named or implied, of course. And there are also some recommendations. The committee's report and recommendations did not concern the behaviour of MPs on trips, is what it says here in terms of what changes there could be. Let me move on then to the next story. Pete, I'll come to you for this one. This is in the page 7 of the Eye. And it's an interesting one. So the government's starting some energy-saving advertising, costing a few millions. But two things here. This is something that a lot of people were calling for at the start of the autumn period. But also, the advice, some of them, is a little bit common sense, isn't it? Switching off the power from the plugs. I mean, you think?
I shake my head in disbelief at this article. Can I remind everyone, I'm not a lover of Boris, but when Boris said, put a blanket round your legs watching television, everyone laughed at him and mocked him. I've got a blanket over there now, which I use watching television. I think it's really nice. They're simple ideas. I come from a lifetime where I was taught to put the lights off in every room as I went out, and that's what I do now. In fact, I've got too many lights on here. This is actually costing me money today. But it's sensible things. But let me, please, bar humbug, where I live, I've never seen so many Christmas decorations outside houses. I thought people had no money. I don't know what's going on. It is sensible. Turn your heating down and switch a radiator off in a room that you're not using. And here's a little tip. Buy a slow cooker. Put in a pan of scouse. Cost nothing. If you can't cook, throw everything in, stock cube, and there's some nice food to eat as well. It's been common. Listen, older people could write this advert.
Well, Pete, I should probably move to where you are, because on my street, nobody is putting up any Christmas decorations. What? I don't know what's wrong with them.
What?
I'm not going to do it.
Where I live, you don't need street lights. You honestly don't need street lights. Now they've gone daft.
Gemma, let me come to you then. This next story is interesting. I mean, I just had a little chuckles myself just reading it. The Telegraph's page 4, bring your family to work to sort the festive posts. You must have some very kind family members who'd agree to do that.
I know, everybody I know is absolutely flat out at this time of year. But yeah, this is Royal Mail. It has been described as a little bit of a desperate bid, but of course they are trying to enable the post to be arriving in the midst of strike action. I mean, is it easier at this point to list public sector workers that aren't going to be striking across the board. And I really hope the government start to listen and look at the sort of barometer of how workers are feeling across the board. So yes, staffing asked, just like enlist help. Anybody you can get your hands on. Granny, brother, daughter who can come in, and they will apparently be paid agency fees, which this is another thing. It's such a sort of false economy in the end, not paying people properly. It's a bit like in the NHS. There were those reports of wildly expensive agency doctors coming in for sort of £5,000 a day. So yeah, it's all a bit of a mess, isn't it? But yes, don't be expecting your usual Christmas cards to be turning up on time at this rate.
Well, I've got two nephews. I may have to make the most of them then and not pay them. I wouldn't get away with it, I tell you that one. And Pete, this story is very interesting because, weirdly enough, one of my weird fears has been seeing some of these aquariums and thinking, what if it bursts, like the one behind you, for example? So this 82-foot aquarium tsunami, as they're saying, in Berlin. That's just remarkable.
Yeah, sadly, 1,500 fish are dead, a million litres of water, and it broke. They reckon it's because of the cold weather, so it wasn't anything sinister because it was the cold weather, but it's in a hotel. Luckily, it broke when it broke, and there weren't many guests around. A couple of guests have been had a problem with splinters of glass, but imagine if when people were checking out, this went and burst. But that's my fear as well. And I come from an age, once again, in the old days, fish tanks weren't like they are now.
We've just run out of time. We've just run out of time. Don't go too far. Don't go too far. We'll be back after this break.